At 9:17 on the morning of her bonding ceremony, Tessa Rowe received a death sentence bearing the Alpha King's private seal. The order gave her 7 days to confess to treason before she was executed in the same courtyard where 600 nobles were waiting to watch her become queen. The impossible part was that King Lucian Greymark had not yet arrived to reject her. Tessa folded the parchment once and slipped it beneath the fitted sleeve of her charcoal gown. "Lady Rowe?" the ceremonial steward prompted. She stepped through the bronze doors before he could see her hand tremble. The Hall of Oaths had been built for spectacle. Tiered galleries rose around a circular floor of black stone. Pack leaders filled every seat, their formal coats marked with silver clasps and ancestral colors. At the center stood an empty throne, a binding altar, and the man who had arranged Tessa's entire future without once asking what she wanted. Chancellor Silas Vere waited beside the altar with a polite expression and a silver wolf pin at his throat. "You're late," he murmured. "I was reading." His gaze sharpened. "Today is not a day for records. For some of us, every day is." Tessa moved past him and took her place beneath the carved moon arch. At 44, she had already survived a ruined family name, 20 years of quiet exclusion from court, and enough whispered pity to recognize hunger when she saw it. The nobles were not there to celebrate her. They wanted to witness whether a Wolfless royal records examiner could stand beside the strongest Alpha King in the Northern Territories without embarrassing him. They would soon receive a better spectacle. The western doors opened. Every wolf in the hall lowered its head. Lucian Greymark entered without escort, dressed in a black military coat with no crown and no ceremonial armor. Silver threaded the dark hair at his temples. His gray eyes found Tessa immediately, then shifted to the binding altar as if looking at her for too long carried a cost. He had asked for this ceremony 3 months earlier. He had spent the weeks since avoiding every private conversation she requested. Tessa watched him approach and understood that whatever he planned, the decision had already been made. Lucian stopped across from her. His face revealed nothing, but his right hand remained closed at his side. The hand that wore the sovereign signet, the same signet that had supposedly marked her death order. The High Keeper raised his staff. "Before the assembled packs, let the promised bond between House Greymark and House Rowe be recognized." "There will be no bond," Lucian said. The words traveled cleanly through the chamber. A murmur rose, then vanished under the weight of his stare. Tessa did not move. Lucian looked at her now. Regret lived somewhere beneath his control, but regret was not an explanation. "I withdraw my offer of marriage," he continued. "Tessa Rowe will not become my consort, my Luna, or a member of the royal house." Silas lowered his eyes with convincing solemnity. The galleries leaned forward. Tessa had spent her life cataloging what powerful men omitted. Lucian had not said she was unworthy. He had not accused her of disloyalty. He had not explained why the woman he had chosen for her judgment and discipline had become unacceptable overnight. He was severing the connection without creating a public enemy, or he believed he was. The parchment beneath her sleeve seemed to burn against her skin. "Do you accept the king's withdrawal?" the High Keeper asked. Tessa met Lucian's gaze. "I accept that no vow should be made by someone unwilling to stand behind it." A few people inhaled sharply. Lucian's jaw tightened. She removed the narrow silver chain from her wrist, the ceremonial token he had sent when he proposed, and placed it on the altar. "I release the king from every personal obligation attached to this arrangement," she said. "I do not release him from the truth." Silas looked up. That was the first honest reaction she had seen from him. Tessa turned away from the altar. "Tessa," Lucian said, "not Lady Rowe, not examiner." Her name stopped her more effectively than a command. She faced him but did not step closer. His closed hand opened. The sovereign's signet remained on his finger. Black iron, square-faced, engraved with a wolf, divided by a vertical blade. "Leave the capital before sunset," he said quietly. The warning was too soft for the galleries, but she heard its urgency. "Why? I cannot explain here. You had 3 months to explain somewhere else." His eyes flicked toward Silas. "Only once. It was enough." Tessa inclined her head as if accepting dismissal, then walked through the bronze doors while the court erupted behind her. She did not return to her guest chambers. She went directly beneath the palace. The Royal Archive occupied 7 underground levels, each colder and more secure than the one above it. Tessa had spent 11 years restoring its neglected records, tracing forged land grants, false military reports, and succession claims altered by men who assumed no woman would notice differences in ink. Her late mother had taught her that paper remembered pressure even when words lied. Tessa locked the examination room and laid the death order beneath 3 lamps. The document appeared flawless. Royal parchment, correct watermark, Lucian's angular signature. The sovereign seal pressed into black wax. She opened a drawer and removed a magnifying lens, a brass measuring fork, and the final letter her mother had written before being convicted of treason 19 years ago. The old letter carried the same seal. Tessa placed the 2 impressions side by side. Every sovereign seal contained a deliberate imperfection known only to the king and the chief archivist. Lucian's was a crescent fracture, crossing the wolf's left eye. It appeared whenever the iron cooled against wax. The death order had a fracture across the right. So did her mother's conviction. Tessa sat back slowly. For 19 years, she had believed Lucian's father had condemned her mother. Now she was looking at proof that someone else had wielded royal authority. A key turned in the outer lock. Tessa covered the documents with blotting cloth as the door opened. Lucian entered alone. "You should be packing," he said. "You should improve your locks." His gaze moved to the examination lamps. "What did you find?" She studied him. His posture remained controlled, but exhaustion hollowed the skin beneath his eyes. He had not come to threaten her. He had come because he knew she would investigate. "You rejected me to make me leave," she said. "Yes, because someone issued an order to kill me." Silence answered first. Then Lucian closed the door. "How did you know?" Tessa pulled the parchment from beneath the cloth and placed it between them. "It was waiting outside my preparation room." He read it without touching it. The restraint told her more than alarm would have. "You've seen another," she said. "3. Her anger sharpened. "3 execution orders bearing your name, 2 detention warrants, and this. And you said nothing. I was trying to determine who had access. You publicly severed our alliance instead. I believed removing you from the royal household would invalidate the order. An executioner may appreciate the distinction." Lucian braced both hands on the table. "Tessa, the men enforcing these warrants do not answer to ordinary courts. They operate through sealed emergency authority established during the border rebellions. Authority you maintained." His eyes held hers. Yes, the admission landed harder than denial. Tessa had expected manipulation, perhaps innocence wrapped in arrogance. She had not expected him to acknowledge responsibility before she forced it from him. "How many people have been taken?" "I don't know." "You are the king." "That is not an answer I am proud of." "No, it is not." He accepted the blow without defending himself. Tessa removed the old conviction order and placed it beside the new one. "My mother's seal was forged by the same instrument." Lucian's face changed. Not surprise, recognition. "You knew," Tessa whispered. "I suspected." "For how long?" 6 weeks. The room seemed to narrow around them. 6 weeks ago, he had proposed marriage. "You did not choose me because you trusted my judgment," she said. "You chose me because you needed access to my mother's case. I chose you for both reasons. You used one to hide the other. I intended to tell you when I had proof. You intended to place me beside the throne while deciding which parts of my life I deserved to know." His voice lowered. "I was trying to keep you alive." "No. You were trying to control the order in which I learned the truth." Lucian straightened. For the first time that morning, something broke through his discipline. "If the council discovers we are investigating emergency verdicts, whoever forged them will destroy the remaining records. Then we move before the council knows." "Vey?" Tessa gathered the documents. "You have 7 days before your own officers are required to execute me," she said. "You do not know who commands them. I have 19 years of questions and a seal that links my mother's death to mine. I will not permit you to become bait. You no longer have authority over my personal decisions." His mouth tightened at the reminder. She continued. "My conditions are simple. I lead the document examination. I receive unrestricted access to every emergency warrant issued during your reign and your father's. You do not remove, conceal, or surrender evidence without my consent. I cannot grant unrestricted access to a civilian examiner. Then arrest me now and save everyone 6 days." They stood across the table, the failed king and the rejected woman, neither willing to retreat. At last, Lucian removed the sovereign signet from his finger. He placed it beside the forged impressions. "If I agree," he said, "you follow security instructions when lives are at risk. I will consider informed requests. I will not obey unexplained commands. That distinction may get you killed. It may also keep me from becoming another secret you bury for the good of the kingdom." The words struck home. Lucian looked toward her mother's conviction. "There is one place we can begin. The original emergency ledger. Where is it?" "In the sealed council vault." "Who controls the vault?" "Silas Veur." Tessa remembered the Chancellor's lowered gaze, the silver wolf pin, the moment his expression changed when she invoked the truth. "That is inconvenient," she said. "It is worse than inconvenient. Silas served my father. He designed the emergency court and has prevented 3 pack uprisings without open war. You trust him. I trusted the results. There it was. The belief beneath all Lucian's mistakes. Order mattered more than the methods used to preserve it." Tessa wrapped her mother's letter around the forged order and tied them together. "Meet me at the council vault after midnight." Lucian frowned. "It requires 2 royal keys. You have one, and Silas has the other." Tessa picked up her brass measuring fork. "Then he should guard it more carefully." At midnight, the palace bells counted 12 slow strokes, while Tessa knelt before the council vault with Lucian standing watch behind her. She had not stolen Silas's key. Beatrice Wynne had. The 61-year-old retired court clerk emerged from the shadows, breathing hard, a ring of iron keys clenched in one hand. "You were right," Beatrice whispered. "The Chancellor keeps it inside his prayer book. Arrogant men always hide sins near whatever they expect others to respect." Tessa took the second key. "You should leave. So should you." Beatrice's lined face softened. She had served beside Tessa's mother and testified against her at trial. Tonight was the first time she had offered to help. Lucian inserted his key into the left lock. Tessa used Silas's on the right. The vault opened. Inside, hundreds of verdicts lay arranged by year. At the center rested a black ledger secured beneath glass, its cover stamped with the divided wolf. Tessa broke the protective case with the base of Lucian's own signet. The sound was small. The consequence was not. Tampering with a sealed royal archive carried a mandatory sentence of permanent exile. Lucian could no longer claim ignorance. Tessa could no longer retreat into lawful procedure. She opened the ledger to the year of her mother's conviction. The page had been cut out. In the hollow beneath it lay a strip of linen marked in her mother's handwriting. Tessa held it beneath the lamp. There were only 8 words. "I signed the first false verdict. Find the 12. Behind her, Lucian stopped breathing. Tessa read the confession again, and the purpose that had driven her for 19 years changed shape in her hands. Her mother had not merely been framed. She had helped build the machine that killed her. The first false verdict had not condemned Tessa's mother. It had condemned 12 miners from Red Hollow. Tessa found their names 3 shelves deeper in the vault, buried inside a tax ledger that had no reason to contain criminal records. Each entry carried the same notation in her mother's hand: transferred under emergency authority, no public hearing, family notification delayed. Delayed meant never. Lucian stood beside her as she read the names aloud. He did not interrupt. He did not offer excuses. The silence between them had changed. Before, it had held suspicion. Now it held the weight of people neither of them had known were missing. Beatrice closed the vault door behind them. "You have less than an hour before the night clerk makes his round." Tessa turned to her. "Did my mother ever mention Red Hollow?" Beatrice's fingers tightened around her shawl. "Once. She said the kingdom had survived because 12 innocent people agreed to disappear." "Agreed?" That was the word she used. Lucian looked toward the ledger. "Prisoners do not agree to vanish. Not unless disappearing protects someone else," Tessa said. She copied the names into her notebook, then held the page over the lamp until the ink dried. 6 men, 4 women, 2 adolescents who had been listed as adults. The youngest had been 15. Her mother had signed the order. Silas had administered it. Lucian's father had benefited from it, and Lucian had preserved the court that made it possible. "We begin with Red Hollow," Tessa said. Lucian shook his head. "The settlement was abandoned after the mine collapse." "Officially. You think the prisoners were taken there?" "I think my mother expected someone to find the list. She hid it in a tax ledger tied to mining royalties." Beatrice glanced toward the corridor. There is another problem. Chancellor Vere has ordered the palace gates closed. He knows his key is missing. Lucian's expression hardened. Go to the East Servants' Passage. My guard captain will escort you home. Beatrice did not move. Your guard captain signed 2 of the detention transfers. Lucian went still. Tessa watched the information strike him, not as an insult but as a wound. Captain Orrin Hale had served him for 14 years. He had guarded Lucian's sickbed, commanded his border defenses, and stood behind him during every public address. Are you certain? Lucian asked. I copied the transfer registry myself. Why did you never tell me? Beatrice gave him a tired look. Because kings ask for truth after deciding which truths are safe to hear. Tessa expected anger. Lucian lowered his eyes. Then stay with us, he said, until I know who can be trusted. Beatrice nodded once. They left the vault through an unused records tunnel and emerged beneath the old chapel. By dawn, the 3 of them were riding north with no royal banner and no escort. Lucian wore a plain traveling coat. Tessa carried the forged death order inside her bodice, her mother's confession inside her boot, and the black verdict seal wrapped in linen beneath her cloak. Red Hollow lay 6 hours beyond the capital, where the hills split around a scar of exposed iron. The road narrowed as they climbed. Abandoned cottages appeared between the trees, their doors hanging open, their roofs pressed inward by years of snow. Tessa dismounted beside the ruined mine office. No graves, she said. Lucian scanned the hillside. A collapse that killed an entire settlement should have left graves, unless no one died here. Beatrice pointed toward a stone marker near the mine entrance. That symbol, a crescent crossed by 3 lines, had been carved into the rock. Tessa had seen the same mark in the margins of her mother's private notes. She knelt and brushed dirt from the base. The stone moved. Beneath it lay a brass token stamped with the number 12. The mine entrance had been sealed with timber and iron bolts, but the hinges were newer than the surrounding wood. Lucian broke the first bolt with a hammer from the abandoned office. Tessa worked on the second with a rusted lever. Neither spoke about the intimacy of laboring side by side, though each time their shoulders touched, both became more careful. The tunnel beyond sloped downward into darkness. They found beds before they found bodies. 12 narrow cots lined a chamber carved beyond the first shaft. Blankets remained folded at their ends. Shelves held preserved food, medical supplies, and children's books sealed inside oilskin. This had not been a prison. It had been a refuge. Tessa opened the nearest storage box. Inside lay letters addressed to families across the northern packs. None had been sent. Lucian took one and read the first lines. They volunteered, he said. Tessa found the agreement beneath the letters. 12 signatures, 12 thumbprints. Her mother's countersignature appeared at the bottom. The Red Hollow miners had discovered that the Eastern Counselor was selling military routes to raiders. Exposing him immediately would have triggered retaliation against their families and opened the border during a succession crisis. They had agreed to enter protective custody for 30 days while evidence was secured. The emergency court had promised new identities and safe passage. The 30 days had become 19 years. Silas never released them, Tessa said. A sound came from the darkness beyond the chamber. Metal dragged against stone. Lucian moved in front of her, one hand reaching for the knife at his belt. An elderly man stepped into the lamplight. His left leg was braced with iron. A faded miner's mark crossed his cheek. Behind him stood 5 more people, not 12. Tessa Rowe, the old man said. She tightened her grip on the lamp. You know me? You have your mother's eyes. His name was Emmett Dane. The foreman listed first in the ledger. Of the original 12, 6 remained alive. 3 had died from illness. 2 had been killed attempting escape. 1 had disappeared through the mountain passages 13 years earlier. The court told us the border was still unstable, Emmett said. Then it told us our families believed us dead. After a while, it stopped telling us anything. Why didn't you leave when the guards withdrew? Lucian asked. Emmett looked at him with open contempt. They did not withdraw. They changed uniforms. He led them through the second shaft to a locked iron gate. Beyond it, fresh boot prints marked the dust. Royal Guard boots. Lucian crouched beside them. The heel carried Orrin Hale's command insignia. Tessa felt Lucian's shame before she saw it. His hand hovered over the print without touching it. My captain has been maintaining this place, he said. Under Silas's authority, Beatrice added. Under mine, Lucian said. Whether I understood the orders or not, Emmett studied him. Your father said the same thing. The accusation remained between them. Tessa expected Lucian to invoke the crown, to explain the threats he had inherited, to separate himself from a dead king's choices. Instead, he removed the royal clasp from his coat and placed it on the ground. I cannot return 19 years to you, he said, but I can open that gate, protect every survivor, and submit myself to testimony when this becomes public. Emmett's expression did not soften. Words are cheaper underground. Then judge what I do next. Lucian broke the lock. That afternoon, Tessa recorded 6 statements while Beatrice prepared food and Lucian reinforced the outer entrance. Attraction should have been impossible in a chamber built from betrayal, yet Tessa found herself watching the king carry water, repair cots, and accept every bitter remark without retreating behind rank. It did not erase what he had allowed. It made the truth harder. Near dusk, Emmett placed a sealed packet before Tessa. Your mother left this with us, he said. She returned 3 years after our detention. She had learned Silas never intended to release us. Why didn't she free you? She tried. Captain Hale stopped her. Tessa opened the packet. Inside was a map of the emergency court's hidden detention sites. 11 locations had been crossed out. 1 remained circled beneath the capital. A note appeared in her mother's hand. The 12 were never the purpose. They were the test. Tessa read the line twice. Emmett leaned closer. Silas wanted to know whether the kingdom would tolerate people disappearing if the paperwork looked lawful. The first twist had been that her mother participated willingly. The second was worse. Red Hollow had not been an isolated moral compromise. It had been a prototype. The emergency court had expanded after the public forgot the miners. How many? Tessa asked. Emmett shook his head. Your mother believed hundreds. Hoofbeats sounded above them. Lucian reached the entrance first. 20 royal guards surrounded the mine. Captain Orrin Hale sat at their head. Silas Hodge beside him. The Chancellor's silver wolfpin caught the setting light. Tessa Rowe, Silas called. By order of the Crown, you are under arrest for theft of sealed records, unlawful entry, and conspiracy against the king. Lucian stepped into view. I gave her access. Silas's expression did not change. Then your majesty has been compromised. The guards lowered their spears. Tessa looked at Lucian. You said they obey emergency authority. Yes. Can you countermand it? Not without the council seal. Silas carried that seal inside his coat. The situation was not an ambush. It was a demonstration. The system had reached the point where the king himself could be treated as an obstacle to royal power. Lucian turned to her. Give me the ledger copies and the map. No. If Silas believes I am taking you into custody, he may let the survivors live. You cannot know that. I know Orrin. He will avoid bloodshed if I give him a lawful path. Tessa searched his face. And what will you do with the evidence? Get it beyond their reach. Where? I cannot tell you. Every broken promise stood between those words. No unexplained commands. No surrendered evidence. Those had been her conditions. Tessa, he said, quieter now. Trust me once. Silas waited. The guards waited. 6 survivors watched from the darkness behind her. Tessa gave Lucian the copied names and her mother's map. He took them without relief. Then he stepped away from her and raised his voice. Tessa Rowe acted without authorization. I revoke her access to the Royal Archive and surrender her to the emergency court. The words struck with the precision of a blade. Orrin dismounted and placed iron restraints around her wrists. Lucian did not look at her. Silas did. Satisfaction flickered across the Chancellor's face as he took the evidence from Lucian's hand. Tessa understood the trap, one breath too late. Lucian had not been trying to get the documents beyond Silas's reach. He had delivered them directly to him. By midnight, Tessa was locked beneath the capital in the 12th detention chamber marked on her mother's map. Across the corridor, behind another iron door, Beatrice called her name. Tessa gripped the bars. Where are the Red Hollow survivors? Released, Beatrice answered. Lucian traded the evidence for their safety. That was the apparent betrayal. Then Beatrice revealed the deeper truth. Your mother did not merely help create the emergency court, she said. She designed the duplicate seal Silas has been using, and she gave the original black verdict seal to Lucian years before she died. Tessa looked down at the linen bundle still hidden beneath her sleeve. The seal she had carried from the archive was not the original. It was the forgery. Footsteps approached. Silas stopped outside her cell. "You have until noon tomorrow to testify that Lucian ordered every disappearance," he said. "Do that, and I will open these cells. Refuse, and the prisoners beneath this palace will be transferred before the public ever learns they existed." He placed a confession on the floor beyond the bars. Tessa now had two choices: destroy Lucian with a lie and save the living prisoners immediately, or protect the truth and risk losing everyone before she could expose the system. Would you falsely accuse Lucian to save the prisoners now, or protect the truth even if innocent people might disappear, and why? Tessa did not touch the confession. Silas waited outside the bars, patient as a man who believed time belonged to him. "You have until noon," he repeated. "No," Tessa said. His expression barely shifted. "No to the confession, no to your deadline." She moved closer to the bars. "You need my testimony because Lucian's name alone is no longer enough. Too many records conflict. Too many prisoners survived. You need the woman whose mother created the seal to make your version believable." Silas smiled faintly. "You always were observant, and you are afraid." That erased the smile. Tessa continued before he could answer. "If the prisoners were already beyond reach, you would not be bargaining. They are still here." Silas stepped nearer. "You are in no position to test me. Then transfer them." His silence confirmed it. The underground passages could not be cleared without moving guards, opening gates, and creating records. Silas had built a system that hid crimes behind procedure. Now procedure trapped him. Tessa looked toward Beatrice's cell. "How many prisoners?" 37, Beatrice answered. "I heard the guards counting meals." Silas turned on her. "Be quiet." Beatrice gripped her bars. "I was quiet for 19 years. The Chancellor walked away without another word. When his footsteps faded, Tessa lowered herself to the floor and unfolded the forged seal from its linen wrapping. "Your mother gave Lucian the original," Beatrice said. "Why would he let you carry the copy?" "Because he wanted Silas to believe the forgery was still secure." Tessa examined the iron face beneath the weak corridor light. The false crescent crossed the wolf's right eye. A thin channel had been cut along the rim, almost invisible beneath old wax. It was not only a seal, it was a printing plate. Her mother had designed it to leave two marks, the visible royal impression and a second trace too faint to see without heat. "She built a way to identify every forged order," Tessa said. Beatrice leaned closer to her bars. "Can you read it?" "Not here." A key turned at the far end of the corridor. Captain Orrin Hale entered alone. He stopped outside Tessa's cell, his face drawn with exhaustion. "Silas believes I am inspecting the locks," he said. "Are you?" "I am deciding whether I have served the crown or merely obeyed a man standing near it." Tessa rose. "How many prisoners did you transport?" Orrin did not look away. 112. Beatrice inhaled sharply. "How many died?" Tessa asked. 23 that I know of." The answer cost him, but not enough. "You knew they had no hearings." "I was told hearings would expose informants and start another war. And when the war never came, I told myself that proved the system worked." Tessa understood then why men like Silas survived. They rarely required monsters. They required respectable people willing to call cowardice duty. "Open the cell," she said. Orrin's hand remained on his keys. "Silas will kill my family. If you leave us here, he will use your loyalty until there is nothing left of your name. He has records bearing my signature. So do I." Orrin looked at the seal in her hand. Tessa held it up. "My mother marked every false verdict. Help me expose them, and your crimes become testimony. Refuse, and they remain evidence against you." For several seconds, he stood motionless. Then he unlocked the door. By sunrise, 37 prisoners, Beatrice and Tessa, were moving through the service tunnels beneath the palace. Orrin led them past guard stations using emergency transfer orders Silas himself had signed. The Chancellor's obsession with lawful appearance had created the very route of escape. They emerged beneath the old courthouse 2 blocks from the Hall of Oaths. Lucian was waiting. Tessa stopped when she saw him. He looked as though he had not slept. His coat was torn at one shoulder, and dried blood marked his collar. Behind him stood Emmett Dane, the 5 Red Hollow survivors, and 4 council members Tessa recognized as longtime opponents of emergency authority. Lucian's gaze moved over the freed prisoners. Relief broke across his face, then disappeared when he met hers. "You chose the truth," he said. "I chose the prisoners." A shadow of pain crossed his eyes. Good, she thought. Pain was not punishment, but it was honest. He stepped aside, revealing a black iron box on the courthouse table. "The original seal," he said. Tessa did not reach for it. "Why did my mother give it to you?" "She did not give it to me." His voice carried enough weight to still the room. "She gave it to Silas." Tessa stared at him. Lucian opened the box. Inside lay the true black verdict seal, its crescent fracture crossing the wolf's left eye. "My father recovered it from Silas's private chamber after your mother's arrest," Lucian continued. "He kept it hidden because exposing Silas would have revealed that the crown had relied on illegal detentions for years." The final truth settled with terrible clarity. Silas had not stolen authority from innocent kings. The kings had discovered his crimes and preserved the system because it remained useful. Lucian's father had condemned Tessa's mother with a forged seal while hiding the original proof. "And you found it 6 weeks ago," she said. "Yes." "You proposed after you found it." "Yes, because marriage would give you access to my mother's papers without opening a public inquiry." His answer was quiet. At first, the words struck harder than any polished defense. Lucian did not move toward her. "I came to respect you before I understood what that respect demanded. By then, I had already built the relationship on concealment. You rejected me to protect the investigation, and to protect myself from admitting what I had done. There was the accountability she had demanded, stripped of romance." The bells above them began to ring. 9 o'clock. The council's weekly public session would begin in 1 hour. Tessa lifted the true seal from its box. "We are not taking this to the council chamber." Lucian frowned. "Where then?" "The Hall of Oaths." Silas had used secrecy as armor. She would remove it before the same 600 witnesses who had watched Lucian reject her. By 10, the hall was full. Pack leaders crowded the galleries. Citizens pressed through the outer doors after word spread that hidden prisoners had emerged beneath the palace. Guards lined the circular floor, uncertain whose orders remained lawful. Silas stood before the throne in formal robes. "You have brought fugitives into a royal proceeding," he said. Tessa walked to the center carrying both seals. "No," she replied. "I brought witnesses." Murmurs swept the galleries. Lucian entered behind her without a crown. Silas turned toward him. "Your Majesty, order her arrest." Lucian faced the crowd instead. "I will issue no further royal commands today." The hall fell silent. Tessa placed the 2 seals on the binding altar. Beatrice lit a shallow brazier. One by one, Tessa warmed copies of emergency verdicts over the flame. Hidden markings rose from the parchment. A tiny number appeared beneath each forged impression. 7, 21, 48, 112. Her mother had numbered every false order she created, leaving a count for whoever eventually chose truth over stability. The final document bore the number 149. Silas watched the sequence appear. For the first time, fear reached his eyes. Tessa raised the page. 149 illegal verdicts. 149 people removed without public hearings. 23 confirmed dead. More remain unaccounted for. Silas recovered quickly. Necessary measures during rebellion. The first 12 volunteered for 30 days. Emmett called from the gallery. "You held us for 19 years. The crowd erupted. Silas lifted his voice above them. "And the kingdom survived. Border raids ended. Pack uprisings failed. Trade continued. Every person in this hall benefited from the peace I preserved." There was his motive, spoken without shame, not greed, certainty. He believed innocent lives were an acceptable price for order, provided someone else paid it. Tessa placed her mother's confession beside the seals. "My mother helped you begin." Silas seized the opening. "Then your family shares my guilt." "Yes." The answer disarmed him. She signed the first order. She helped create the duplicate seal. Then she tried to expose what the court became. She was neither innocent nor beyond redemption. Tessa turned toward Lucian, and neither is the king. A ripple moved through the hall. Lucian stepped onto the ceremonial platform where he had rejected her. "My father discovered these crimes and concealed them," he said. "I inherited the emergency court, approved secret detentions, and refused to examine how Chancellor Vere produced peace so efficiently. I was not ignorant. I was deliberately incurious." Silas stared at him. "Do you understand what confession will do to the throne?" "Yes." Lucian removed the sovereign clasp from his coat. "I abdicate effective immediately." The hall broke into chaos. Tessa had known he intended to confess. She had not known he would surrender the crown. Lucian placed the clasp beside the seals. "I will submit to an independent tribunal with every officer who signed these orders. I ask for no immunity." Silas's composure finally shattered. "You weak fool. Without the throne, the Pax will tear each other apart." "Then your peace was never peace," Lucian said. "It was fear with good bookkeeping." Silas reached inside his robes. Oren moved first, drawing his sword. But Silas did not produce a weapon. He pulled out a bundle of emergency orders and threw them into the brazier. Flame climbed the parchment. Tessa seized the iron tongs and dragged the bundle free. The pages blackened at the edges, but the hidden numbers had already risen in the heat. Silas had destroyed his final defense himself. The orders bore his private countersignature. His need to erase the evidence had authenticated it before hundreds of witnesses. Oren placed him under arrest. 3 months later, the emergency court was abolished. Silas was sentenced to life imprisonment after a public trial. Oren received 12 years and testified in every remaining case. Survivors were compensated from royal estates, including property Lucian surrendered voluntarily. Lucian was not imprisoned, but he lost the throne, his command, and the right to hold public office. He accepted every judgment without asking Tessa to speak for him. She did not forgive him at the trial. She did not take his hand when he waited outside the courthouse. Instead, she opened the independent archive of Greymark, where every royal verdict could be examined by the people it affected. Beatrice became its first public clerk. Emmett headed the commission searching for those who had disappeared. Lucian came each week as a witness, then as a volunteer. He repaired shelves, carried boxes, answered questions from families who hated him. He changed before knowing whether Tessa would ever allow him back into her life. A year after the rejection ceremony, Tessa found him alone in the Hall of Oaths, removing the last royal banner from the wall. "You missed one," she said. He looked down at her. The distance between them no longer felt like punishment. It felt like space honestly earned. "I am sorry," Lucian said. "Not because I lost you, because I treated your right to choose as less important than my plan." Tessa studied the man he had become without a throne to protect him. "I forgave you months ago," she said. Hope entered his face. Carefully. "That does not mean we return to what we were. I know. We begin again, or we do not begin at all." Lucian offered his hand, but did not close the distance. Tessa looked at it. Then she placed her hand in his. Outside, the archive doors opened, and morning light crossed the black stone where a king had once rejected a woman to control the truth. This time, neither of them made a promise they had not earned. Love cannot replace accountability, and forgiveness does not require immediate reconciliation. Trust returns through truth, sacrifice, and consistent action. Subscribe for more mature Alpha King stories about justice, betrayal, and second chances that must be earned. Tell me in the comments. Could you rebuild a life with someone who changed only after losing everything?